Today we are looking at Betrayal Beneath the Mistletoe, a personal narrative detailing a protagonist's gradual discovery of his girlfriend's infidelity during what was meant to be a romantic Christmas hotel getaway.
Right, and it's a piece with some incredibly intense, raw emotion and natural suspense.
It really is, but to maximize the reader's engagement and that emotional payoff, it definitely needs some structural tightening. We're going to jump right into the feedback here.
Let's do it.
So looking through the lens of pacing, the transition from initial suspicion to full discovery occurs too abruptly, dampening the psychological tension of the narrative.
Yeah, that's exactly the issue. In the current draft, the sequence just moves way too fast.
Right. I mean, he notices the obscure streamer on his girlfriend's phone, feels a bit of doubt, goes for a walk, and then immediately searches the username.
And within like a single paragraph, he instantly discovers she's the only active chatter in the stream, sending these really intimate messages.
Yeah.
It's just, well, the answers are handed to the reader and to the protagonist without enough friction. It skips completely over the torment of doubt.
Right, and that slow build of paranoia is exactly what makes betrayal narratives so deeply compelling.
Exactly. The weakness here is that we aren't letting the protagonist suffer through that uncertainty. He suspects something, he checks, he knows, boom.
But, let me push back on that a little bit.
Sure.
If you suspect your partner of something that devastating, wouldn't you just immediately search for proof? I mean, it's basic human nature to want answers fast.
Oh, absolutely. It's human nature to look. But that doesn't mean it's good storytelling to find it immediately.
Okay, fair. But if we stretch this out, don't we risk the protagonist looking passive or like we're artificially stalling the plot?
Well, stalling the plot and building suspense are two very different things, right? The suggestion here is to stretch out the period of uncertainty between noticing the username and confirming the intimate messages, to build greater suspense and mirror his internal dread.
I see. So it's about forcing him to earn the discovery.
Exactly. You want to stretch the rubber band of his anxiety. There are a few concrete ways to solve this. For example, he could search the username during his walk, but only find a locked profile.
Oh, that's good. Or maybe a really vague landing page.
Right. That creates an immediate obstacle. So he has the scent, but no proof. He's forced to return to that hotel room, with his anxiety significantly heightened.
Now he has to look for physical clues. He's reading her body language differently, analyzing her tone.
Alternatively, he might see the intimate chat while he's outside, but he doesn't immediately realize she is the sender.
Wait, like maybe the sender is using an anonymous handle?
Yes, exactly. So the dread is there. He is literally watching someone flirt with this streamer, but the final puzzle piece hasn't dropped.
Oh, wow. So he goes back to the room with this terrible theory, but he still needs a specific detail to connect the dots later that evening.
Yeah, imagine the agonizing tension of him sitting on the hotel bed, knowing this streamer is interacting with someone in real time.
And then watching his girlfriend's thumbs move across her screen at the exact cadence of the messages.
That is brilliant. It perfectly aligns the reader's heartbeat with the protagonist's. Right, it shifts the focus to the environment.
Which actually brings us to the lens of tone and style.
Oh, definitely. And the topic sentence here is vital. The festive setting and the specific details of the lingerie are introduced as plot mechanics, but lack a cohesive thematic resonance with the emotional betrayal.
They really do. The narrative sets up this booked Christmas getaway, and there is this unworn lingerie she explicitly asked him to buy.
Right, which he just casually discarded on the bed.
Yeah, but the weakness is that these elements act merely as background details. It just happens to be Christmas. The lingerie just happens to be there.
So they aren't actually doing any heavy lifting for the mood.
Exactly. The profound contrast between the intimate, celebratory expectations of the holiday and the cold, isolating reality of her scrolling on her phone isn't fully exploited, leaving all that potential emotional depth on the table. But let me play devil's advocate again.
Go for it.
If we lean too heavily into the blinking Christmas lights and the sad lingerie, don't we risk tipping over into pure melodrama? Like it can feel a bit cliché.
Well, it would be cliché if the setting mirrored his mood. But the power here lies in the fact that the setting contrasts the mood.
Ah, right. It's a holiday setting. It brings this massive weight of cultural expectation.
Joy, forced togetherness, intimacy. The betrayal violates all of those expectations. So the suggestion is to utilize the environmental details and the physical objects as recurring motifs to heighten the contrast and emphasize the depth of the deception.
I love that. So instead of melodrama, you focus on the harsh realities of that contrast. What are some concrete examples of how to do that?
Well, the writer could describe the forced, festive atmosphere of the hotel room. Maybe there is a blinking Christmas light outside the window.
Just casting this annoying rhythmic shadow across the room.
Yes. Or a holiday movie is playing silently on the TV, contrasting sharply with the absolute silence of her digital distraction.
Being ignored in a hotel room specifically booked for romance is a completely different level of sting than just being ignored at home. The environment is basically mocking him.
Precisely. And another option is to focus heavily on the physical presence of the unworn lingerie,
Yeah, right now it's just a bullet point. She left it on the bed because she doesn't want to get it dirty.
which is a chilling detail in hindsight. Because later, that lingerie acts as the ultimate smoking gun when he finds the photos of her wearing it for the other man.
So we need to feel its presence in the room way before that discovery.
Exactly. Have it lying discarded on the bed as a symbol of the growing distance between them. It becomes a physical barrier on the mattress.
Right, it's not just an item of clothing, it's his effort and her rejection. And establishing that weight early on ensures the later discovery hits so much harder,
It transforms from a convenient plot point into a devastating emotional gut punch.
which naturally leads us to that gut punch, the climax. Let's look at this through the lens of structure and flow. The confrontation and subsequent resolution lack a definitive active emotional release, leading to a somewhat passive conclusion that diffuses the built-up tension.
This is probably the biggest structural issue in the draft. We spend all this time climbing to the emotional peak of the photographic discovery.
Right, he finally gets into her phone and sees the photos of her with the other man.
But the weakness is what happens next. The protagonist's decision to wait days to break up via text, followed by her excuses, just drags out the ending.
Okay, I have to defend the writer's instincts here for a second, because the sequence of events, pretending nothing happened, driving her home, the text breakup days later saying, "I knew everything," and her denial, that is painfully realistic.
It is realistic, sure.
People are terrified of conflict. They will sit through a 2-hour car ride pretending everything is fine just to avoid screaming. Why shouldn't the narrative reflect that messy reality?
Because, well, while it may reflect realistic conflict avoidance, narratively it creates an anticlimactic fizzle. The story's energy peaks in the hotel room, but the narrative wanders on for several days afterward.
Okay, I see what you mean. The primary question of the piece is she cheating on me? And the absolute second he sees those photos, that question is answered.
Exactly. The engine of the story shuts off right there. Everything after that realization is just administrative wrap-up. If you detail text exchanges and weak excuses days later, you are actively boring the audience.
So the realism is actually burying the emotional truth of the betrayal.
Right. So the suggestion here is to restructure the ending to create a sharper, more immediate moment of realization and finality, bringing the story to a clean, emotionally resonant close without lingering on the aftermath.
We want the reader breathless, not reading a transcript of an argument. So how do we actually reshape that?
As a concrete example, the writer could condense the timeline so the ending happens immediately upon leaving the hotel. Maybe they are in the car ride home.
Oh, a pressure cooker environment. They are trapped in a small box, and she is carrying on her deception.
Making casual small talk about the holidays, completely unaware that he knows everything. And you end it the second she gets out of the car. No long speeches, just a single, unarguable sentence like, "I know."
Wow, just I know.
Yes, it utilizes the incredible contrast between her ongoing lies and his absolute certainty.
That is so powerful. It gives the protagonist a moment of quiet, definitive agency. He doesn't need her to confess. He just drops the bomb and it's over.
Alternatively, if they want to be even bolder, the writer could end the narrative right inside the hotel room. Just cut the car ride entirely.
And right at the moment, he sees the second set of lingerie in the photos.
Exactly. Let that silent realization serve as the powerful, devastating climax without needing the post-breakups text exchange at all.
Oh, I love that. He's sitting in the dark, the harsh glow of the phone on his face. The realization is absolute. We don't need to read the logistics of the breakup because the relationship canonically dies in that exact second in the dark.
Right. The arguments, the tears, the texts, they are just echoes of the explosion. We want to end the piece on the explosion itself.
It honors the emotional truth of the experience far more effectively than a literal recounting ever could.
It really does. It transitions the work from just recounting a bad weekend into a finely tuned psychological exploration.
So, just to briefly recap our core critique today. First, slowing down the pacing of the initial discovery to build a genuinely agonizing suspense.
Right, introducing those temporary obstacles.
Second, utilizing the holiday setting and physical objects, like the unworn lingerie, for deeper thematic contrast to really amplify the isolation without feeling melodramatic.
Making the environment do the heavy lifting.
Exactly. And finally, sharpening the climax to deliver a clean, powerful resolution, rather than letting the tension diffuse in a mundane text argument days later.
So the actionable steps for the writer are to stretch the timeline of the investigation, weave sensory details of the room into the moments of silence, and trim the post-hotel timeline to create a more impactful ending.
I think these revisions will make a massive difference. We warmly invite the listener to implement these changes and submit the updated piece back into the critique for further review. You have an incredible foundation here, and we can't wait to see